Welcome back. Let's now make our application actually do something. When we click on the check button, back to VS Code. So this is the first time that our code reacts to something that happens in the DOM. So here we need to use an event listener. Now an event is something that happens on the page. For example, a mouse click or a mouse moving or a key press and so on other events. Then with an event listener, we can wait for a certain event to happen and then react to it. Now let's start writing our code, and then first we need to place all this code in comments. Here also. And then first we need to select the element. If in order to listen for events, we call the events and where the event should happen. Now here in this example, we want to listen the event here in this button checkbox. When we click on this button, something should happen. Now let's select the button element, write document dot query selector, and then see here the, the button here. This is the button. It is button and check. This button is the generic one, and this check is the right one to use here. So here write dot check. Now here in this element, we can call the addEventListener method. Here write dot add event listener. So this is a method, and here in this method we first need to pass in the type of the event. Now here I am writing click, and so that is the first argument that we pass here into this function. But now actually to tell the event listener what to do in basically we need to specify the reaction to the click event, and we do that by defining a function. That function will contain exactly the code that should be executed whenever this click event happens on this check button. And that function is going to be called the event handler. Now this addEventListener method here is a special kind of function. Here it expects the second argument and event handler is function. Now right here we need to pass a function value as an argument. Now just remember here what we have learned in the fundamentals section, which is that a function is also just a value, and if a function is just a value, then we can also pass it into another function as an argument, just like any other value like a string or a number. Now let's create a function, and then here in this function we have block, and in this block write console.log document dot query selector, and then here this block element is dot guess, and then here we are writing value property, that is dot value. That's it. And here let's console inspect here. Reload. Here just give any number and then click on check. Here it displayed 15 here in console. So let's quickly go over this again. We selected this button here using query selector, and then we used the addEventListener method on that element. We attached an event handler, and that event handler is this function here. Now notice that here we didn't call any function here anywhere. We only defined the function there and then pass it into the event handler. But in JavaScript, who will call this function as soon as the event happens? So here the function will not be called once the script here is executed. This function is only be called as soon as the event happens. And now let's try here with a different number and then check. See here it is working, and we can also do some DOM manipulation here. Now let's select this text here, copy and then paste it here. Now when I click this here, not only the value from this input field will get logged into the console. And here this message will change. It is because of the text content of this element. Now let's remove this one. In the real game, if we click on this number from this input field, we have to be retrieved. So let's start with that. Here, instead of logging it to the console, let's actually save it into a variable. Now for that, write here const. I'm giving here guess equal document.query selector and then element name and the value dot value. Now write the console for this. Console.log guess. Now let us check here. It displayed. And in the fundamental section, we discussed that whenever we get something from the user interface, for example, from an input field, is usually always a string. Let's see that right here. Type of, we already know that. And then reload. Here giving 5, check. It displayed this is a string. So for that reason, we first need to convert this string to a number using the number function right here. Number and then here we need both. Here write guess and then type of guess. Now let's check this. Here I am giving same 5 number. Check. It displayed 5 is a number. And then here I am giving 12. Then check. 12 is a number. We're done with this, and now let's start to implement the game logic. Here in this case, actually we are having no guess that an application looks which has an input value from the user. So the first thing to do is to check if there actually is a value. If there is no value, then we can print something to the console as a response. Simply write here if there is no guess, then block, and then let's check. Here it displayed 0. 0 is a number, but here the 0 is a false value. So the guess of here false statement will be false. Any value that we have in this condition part will always get evaluated to a boolean. But now here we want something to happen whenever this is false. Here we actually want a true value. We simply use the not operator to then invert this boolean from false to true. Now let's write the statement here. Copy and then paste here. And then here I'm editing this text, correct number. I'm giving here no number. Let's check here. Here displayed no number. So our guess here is also false now. But this will execute again because whenever this whole condition here is true, then it will be executed. Now we have done with this first scenario, and in the next video we will implement all the scenarios. I hope that now you have a better idea of doing all this. We'll continue in the next lecture. Thank you.